Hey everyone, welcome back. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss these incredible stories. Today's tale is about how one missed bus and a leap of faith completely transformed a young woman's life in ways she never could have imagined. It was 11:47 p.m. on a rainy Thursday night in the small town of Millbrook, population 8,500. The kind of town where everyone knows everyone, where the biggest excitement is usually the annual Harvest Festival, and where the last bus of the day stops. Running at 11:45 p.m. sharp. Standing alone at the dimly lit bus stop on Main Street was 22-year-old Emma Rodriguez, soaked to the bone and watching the taillights of the last bus disappear into the darkness. Emma worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. During the day, she was a cashier at Henderson's General Store, the town's main grocery store, making minimum wage and dealing with difficult customers who often treated her like she was invisible. 3 nights a week, she cleaned offices at the small business complex on the other side of town, a job that paid cash under the table and helped her scrape together enough money to cover rent, food, and the small amount she tried to save each month. Tonight had been particularly brutal. The cleaning job had run late because one of the offices had been left in terrible condition after a business meeting, with coffee spills, scattered papers, and overflowing trash cans. Emma had stayed an extra hour to get everything spotless, knowing that if she didn't, she might lose the job. But that extra hour had cost her the last bus home. Emma lived in a tiny studio apartment about 4 miles from the business complex, in the older part of town where rent was cheapest. 4 miles might not sound like much, but on a cold, rainy night with no streetlights for most of the route, it felt like an impossible journey. She had exactly $3.47 in her wallet, not enough for a taxi even if there had been one available in Millbrook at midnight. She pulled out her phone to call her friend Jessica, but remembered that Jessica was working the night shift at the diner and wouldn't be able to help. Her other friend, Marcus, didn't have a car. Her parents lived 2 states away, and she hadn't spoken to them in months anyway after a falling out about her decision to drop out of college when she couldn't afford tuition. Emma stood there for a moment, rain dripping from her hair, trying to figure out what to do. She could walk, but it would take at least an hour and a half in this weather, and she had to be back at Henderson's at 7 a.m. She was already exhausted from working 14 hours, and the thought of walking 4 miles in the rain made her want to cry. That's when she heard a car slow down behind her. Emma tensed up immediately. She had heard enough stories about young women accepting rides from strangers, and nothing good ever seemed to come from those situations. But when she turned around, she saw an older pickup truck, probably from the 1990s, with rust spots and a dented bumper. The driver rolled down the window, and Emma could see it was a man who appeared to be in his 40s, with kind eyes and a concerned expression. "Excuse me," the man called out. "I couldn't help but notice you missed the bus. Are you okay? Do you need a ride somewhere?" Emma's first instinct was to say no. Everything she had ever been taught about stranger danger was screaming at her to walk away. But something about the man's voice was gentle, non-threatening. He wasn't trying to get her to come closer to the truck, he wasn't being pushy or aggressive. And honestly, he looked about as harmless as a person could look. "I appreciate the offer," Emma said cautiously, "but I don't really know you." The man nodded understandingly. "You're absolutely right to be careful. I'm David, by the way. David Miller. I live here in town, been here about 6 months now. I was just driving home from the library and saw you standing here in the rain." Emma had heard the name David Miller around town. People mentioned him occasionally as the new guy who had moved into the old Peterson house on Elm Street, the one that had been empty for years. He kept to himself mostly, but the few people who had interacted with him said he seemed nice enough. "I'm Emma," she said, still keeping her distance. "I live over on Oak Street, but it's pretty far to walk." "Oak Street?" That's not too far out of my way, David said. Look, I understand if you don't want to accept a ride from someone you don't know. But it's really coming down out here, and it's late. How about this? You can call someone and give them my license plate number, let them know you're getting a ride. Would that make you feel safer? Emma considered this. It was a reasonable suggestion, and it showed that David understood her concerns and was trying to address them. She was getting more soaked by the minute, and the prospect of walking for miles in this weather was becoming less appealing by the second. Okay, she said finally. But I'm going to text my friend your license plate and let her know what's happening. Absolutely, David said. Take a picture of the truck too if you want. Emma quickly texted Jessica the license plate number and a brief explanation, then walked over to the passenger side of the truck. The interior was clean but worn, with a few books on the dashboard and a coffee cup in the cup holder. It smelled like pine air freshener and old leather. Thank you so much for this, Emma said as she buckled her seatbelt. I really didn't want to walk home in this weather. No problem at all, David replied, pulling away from the curb. I've been in situations where I needed help from strangers before. It's nice to be able to pay it forward. As they drove through the quiet streets of Millbrook, Emma found herself relaxing slightly. David was a careful driver, he kept the conversation light and non-invasive, and he seemed genuinely interested in just helping her get home safely. So you work at the business complex? David asked. Yeah, I clean offices there a few nights a week. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills, Emma replied. Nothing wrong with honest work, David said. I respect people who work hard to take care of themselves. Emma was surprised by this response. Most people, when they learned she was a cleaner, either looked down on her or quickly changed the subject. David's genuine respect for her work was refreshing. What do you do? Emma asked. David was quiet for a moment. I'm kind of between things right now. Taking some time to figure out what I want to do next. Emma nodded. She understood that feeling. Sometimes life didn't go according to plan, and you had to take time to regroup. As they continued driving, Emma noticed that David seemed to know the town pretty well for someone who had only been there 6 months. He took shortcuts that even some longtime residents didn't know about, and he seemed familiar with the layout of the streets. You seem to know your way around pretty well, Emma observed. David smiled. I like to explore. When I moved here, I spent a lot of time just driving around, getting to know the area. They pulled up in front of Emma's apartment building, a modest 2-story structure that had seen better days. Emma felt a little embarrassed about where she lived, especially compared to the nice house on Elm Street that David supposedly lived in. This is me, she said. Thank you so much for the ride. I really appreciate it. You're very welcome, David said. Emma, can I ask you something? Emma tensed slightly. Sure. You seem like you work really hard. 2 jobs, long hours. What are you working toward? What's your goal? It was an unexpected question, and Emma wasn't sure how to answer. Most people didn't ask her about her goals or dreams. They saw her as just another minimum wage worker, someone without ambition or potential. I don't know, she said honestly. I used to want to go to college, maybe study business or marketing. But that didn't work out financially. Now I'm just trying to get by, I guess. David nodded thoughtfully. What if the financial part wasn't an issue? What would you want to do then? Emma looked at him curiously. Why do you ask? Just curious. I think it's important for people to have dreams, even when circumstances make them seem impossible. Emma thought about it. I guess I'd want to start my own business someday. Maybe a marketing consultancy for small businesses. I see so many small businesses in towns like this that could be doing so much better if they just knew how to reach more customers, how to present themselves professionally. David's eyes lit up. That's a great idea. Small towns definitely need that kind of expertise. Yeah, well, it's just a dream, Emma said with a shrug. Thanks again for the ride. As Emma got out of the truck, David rolled down the window. Emma, would you be interested in having coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more about your business ideas. Emma was surprised. You want to have coffee with me? If you're comfortable with that. I think you're more interesting than you give yourself credit for. Emma smiled. Okay. Sure. I usually have Sunday afternoons free. Great. How about Sunday at 2 p.m. at Rosie's Cafe? Sounds good, Emma said. See you then. As David drove away, Emma stood in the rain for a moment, watching his taillights disappear. There was something about him that intrigued her, something that didn't quite add up. But she was too tired to think about it much. She went upstairs to her tiny apartment, took a hot shower, and fell into bed. Sunday afternoon came, and Emma found herself actually looking forward to coffee with David. She had spent the past few days thinking about their conversation, about his questions about her goals and dreams. It had been a long time since anyone had asked her about what she wanted out of life. Rosie's Cafe was the kind of place where everyone in town eventually ended up. It was cozy, with mismatched furniture and local artwork on the walls. Emma arrived a few minutes early and chose a table near the window. When David walked in, she was struck again by how normal he looked. Jeans, a simple button-down shirt, nothing flashy or expensive. Thanks for meeting me, David said as he sat down. I've been thinking about our conversation the other night. Really? Why? Emma asked. Because I think you're selling yourself short. You have a clear vision for a business that could really help people, but you're convinced it's impossible. Emma stirred her coffee. It's not that I think it's impossible. It's that I'm realistic about my situation. I don't have money for college, I don't have business experience, I don't have connections. I'm just a girl who cleans offices and works at a grocery store. What if I told you that some of the most successful entrepreneurs started with less than you have right now? David asked. I'd say that's easy to say when you're not living paycheck to paycheck. David leaned forward. Emma, can I tell you something? But I need you to promise to hear me out before you react. Emma felt a flutter of nervousness. Okay. I haven't been entirely honest with you about who I am. Emma's heart started beating faster. What do you mean? David took a deep breath. My name really is David Miller, and I really do live on Elm Street. But I'm not just some guy who's between jobs. I'm actually, well, I'm pretty wealthy. Very wealthy, actually. Emma stared at him. What are you talking about? I sold my tech company 3 years ago for about $47 million. I've been traveling around the country ever since, staying in small towns, trying to figure out what to do with my life and my money. Emma felt like the world had tilted sideways. You're telling me you're a millionaire? Multimillionaire, technically. But yes. Emma stood up abruptly. Is this some kind of joke? Are you making fun of me? Emma, please sit down. I'm not making fun of you at all. This is exactly why I didn't tell you right away. Why didn't you tell me? Why lie about it? David looked genuinely distressed. Because I wanted to get to know the real you. When people find out about my money, everything changes. They either want something from me, or they treat me completely differently, or they assume I'm some kind of snob who looks down on working people. Emma sat back down, but she was clearly agitated. So what, you've been slumming it with the poor girl for entertainment? No. Emma, that's not it at all. I gave you a ride because you needed help, and I asked you to coffee because I genuinely enjoyed talking with you. You're smart, you're hardworking, you have great ideas, and you treat people with kindness and respect. Your financial situation has nothing to do with why I wanted to get to know you better. Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. So why are you telling me now? Because I want to help you start your business. Emma laughed. But it wasn't a happy sound. Oh, here we go. The rich guy wants to rescue the poor girl. That's not what this is about, David said firmly. Emma, I've spent the last 3 years looking for ways to use my money meaningfully. I've donated to charities, I've funded scholarships, I've invested in startups. But most of the time, I feel like I'm just throwing money at problems without really understanding them or connecting with the people I'm trying to help. He paused, looking directly at her. But when I met you, when I heard you talk about your business idea, I realized that this could be different. This could be a real partnership. You have the vision, the understanding of what small businesses need, the work ethic to make it happen. I have the capital and the business experience to help you get started. Emma shook her head. David, I can't just accept money from you. We barely know each other. I'm not talking about just giving you money. I'm talking about investing in your business. You would own the majority stake, you would run everything, you would make all the decisions. I would be a silent partner who provides startup capital and advice when you want it. Emma was overwhelmed. This is crazy. Things like this don't happen to people like me. Why not? What makes you think you don't deserve success? Emma was quiet for a long time, staring out the window at the small town street. Finally, she spoke. Because I've never had anything handed to me. I've always had to work for everything, and even then, it's never been enough. I dropped out of college, I live in a crappy apartment, I work 2 jobs just to survive. I'm not the kind of person who gets lucky breaks. David leaned back in his chair. Emma, do you know why I moved to Millbrook? No. Because I grew up in a town just like this one. My parents were factory workers, we lived in a trailer, and I wore second-hand clothes to school. I know what it's like to feel like success is for other people, not for you. Emma looked at him with new interest. Really? Really? I got lucky with my tech company, but before that, I failed at 3 different businesses. I know what it's like to work multiple jobs, to count every penny, to feel like you're invisible to the rest of the world. So why help me specifically? Because you remind me of myself 20 years ago. But more than that, because I think you have something special. You see opportunities that other people miss. You understand what small businesses need because you've lived in communities like this your whole life. And you have the work ethic to actually make it happen. Emma was quiet again, thinking. What exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing that we start Rodriguez Marketing Solutions. You would own 60%, I would own 40%. I would provide initial funding of $200,000 to get you started, office space, equipment, marketing, living expenses for the first year while you build your client base. You would run the business completely. I would be available for advice and consultation, but all decisions would be yours. Emma felt dizzy. $200,000? It's not as much as it sounds like for a business startup, but it's enough to give you a real chance to succeed. And what do you get out of it? David smiled. I get to see someone with real potential actually get the opportunity they deserve. And if the business succeeds, I get a return on my investment. But honestly, Emma, the money isn't the important part for me. I have more money than I know what to do with. What I want is to be part of something meaningful, something that actually helps people. Emma stared at him for a long moment. This is insane. Maybe. But sometimes the best opportunities seem insane at first. I need time to think about this. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Emma, can I ask you to do one thing while you're thinking? What? Don't let fear make the decision for you. Don't say no just because it seems too good to be true or because you don't think you deserve it. Really consider whether this is something you want to do. Over the next week, Emma could barely concentrate on her regular jobs. Her mind kept returning to David's offer, turning it over from every angle. Part of her was suspicious. Why would a millionaire want to invest in someone like her? But another part of her was excited by the possibility of actually pursuing her dreams. She did some research on David Miller and discovered that he was telling the truth. There were articles about his tech company sale, mentions of his charitable donations, and even a few interviews where he talked about wanting to use his wealth to help other entrepreneurs. Emma also spent time really thinking about her business idea. She walked around Millbrook and the surrounding towns, looking at small businesses and thinking about how she could help them. She realized that her idea wasn't just a pipe dream, there was real demand for marketing services in small communities, and she had insights that could genuinely help business owners. Finally, she called David. I want to do it, she said. But I have some conditions. I'm listening. First, I want everything in writing, with lawyers involved. I want to make sure this is a real business partnership, not charity. Absolutely. Second, I want to start small. Maybe 50,000 to begin with, not 200,000. I want to prove that this can work before we invest more. That's smart. I respect that. And third, I want to understand why you're really doing this. I need to know that you're not going to change your mind or decide you made a mistake. David was quiet for a moment. Emma, 3 years ago, I had more money than I'd ever dreamed of, but I was miserable. I felt disconnected from everything that mattered. I've been looking for a way to use my resources to make a real difference, not just write checks to charities. When I met you, when I heard your passion for helping small businesses, I realized that this could be exactly what I've been looking for, a chance to partner with someone who has the vision and drive to create something meaningful. 6 months later, Rodriguez Marketing Solutions was thriving. Emma had rented a small office space in downtown Millbrook and had already signed 12 clients from the surrounding area. Her services included website design, social media management, local advertising strategies, and business consultation. David had been true to his word. He provided the startup capital and was available for advice when Emma asked for it, but he let her run the business completely. He had also helped her navigate the legal and financial aspects of starting a company, connections that would have taken Emma years to develop on her own. Emma's life had transformed completely. She was able to quit her cleaning job and reduce her hours at Henderson's general store. She was making more money than she ever had, but more importantly, she was doing work that she loved and that made a real difference for her clients. One of her first clients was Martinez Family Restaurant, a small Mexican restaurant that had been struggling to attract customers. Emma redesigned their website, helped them develop a social media presence, and created a local advertising campaign. Within 3 months, their business had increased by 40%. Another client was Thompson's Hardware, a family-owned store that was losing business to big box retailers. Emma helped them develop an online presence and created a marketing strategy that emphasized their personal service and community connections. They were now thriving and had even hired 2 new employees. But perhaps the most satisfying part of Emma's new life was the respect she had gained in the community. People who had barely noticed her when she was cleaning their offices now sought out her advice and expertise. She had gone from being invisible to being seen as a successful businesswoman and community leader. David, meanwhile, had found the sense of purpose he had been searching for. He loved hearing about Emma's successes, loved seeing how her business was helping other small business owners, and loved being part of something that was making a real difference in people's lives. A year after that rainy night at the bus stop, Emma and David were having their regular monthly business meeting at Rosie's Cafe. Emma was presenting her plans for expanding into neighboring towns, and David was impressed by her growth and vision. "You know," David said, "when I first offered you that ride, I never imagined it would lead to all this." Emma smiled. "Neither did I. I was just a girl who missed the bus and needed help getting home." "You were never just anything, Emma. You were always someone with incredible potential. You just needed the opportunity to show it." Emma looked around the cafe, at the small town that had always felt limiting but now felt full of possibilities. "Thank you, David. Not just for the money, but for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey. This has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done with my money." 2 years later, Rodriguez Marketing Solutions had expanded to serve clients in 5 different towns and employed 6 people. Emma had been featured in several business magazines as an example of successful rural entrepreneurship, and she had been invited to speak at conferences about small business marketing. David had become not just a business partner but a genuine friend and mentor. He had taught Emma about business strategy, financial management, and long-term planning. Emma had taught David about community, authenticity, and the satisfaction that comes from building something from the ground up. The story of how they met. A missed bus, a stranger's kindness, and a leap of faith had become legendary in Millbrook. It was a reminder that opportunities can come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the people who seem ordinary are actually extraordinary. Emma never forgot the lesson of that rainy night, that accepting help from others isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of wisdom. And that sometimes, the scariest decisions, like getting into a stranger's truck or accepting an impossible-seeming business offer, can lead to the most amazing outcomes. David never forgot the lesson either, that true wealth isn't about how much money you have, it's about how you use that money to create opportunities for others and build something meaningful. Their partnership had started with a simple act of kindness on a rainy night, but it had grown into something much larger, a thriving business, a strong friendship, and proof that when people with different resources and backgrounds come together with mutual respect and shared vision, they can create something extraordinary. If this story inspired you to take chances on unexpected opportunities or to believe in your own potential, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more incredible stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Have you ever had a chance encounter that changed your life? Share your experiences in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and remember, you never know what opportunities might be waiting for you, even on your worst days. Sometimes missing the bus is exactly what you need to catch the ride of your lifetime. I'll see you in the next video.